Morning, Kindlech, here to God willing record O Zion in the mimer from Kimei Seitz, Mitzvah Shrine, Marina Flows, or as we've been listening at Acharon Shel Pesach Tuf Shin, learning out of the Sefer Mamorim Malukit, Binyani Gula Mashiach. As always, learning to bind our souls to God, give pleasure to God, hasten the redemption. Let's see what we got from Mils Beduksa. You know what's the opposite of Congress? Progress! Oh, I like that. Too much, eating the wrong foods, it makes a difference. Don't feel right, but let's get back on track, refocus, make it happen. We're in the middle of the sphere. Today's Netzik Shiva War today. Withholding the victory within withholding. Alright, so let's be victorious and withhold. Alright, talking about different levels of miracles, and now this is a heavy hitting host. Not that they're not all heavy hitting, but we're gonna talk about how can a person experience, these are my words, just to have a framework. I like a little framework when I hear something to set it up. Let's say a human being is witnessing a tremendous miracle, like the sea splitting. Alright, so a person might ask, how could it be that nature's breaking over there, and yet the witness, the perceiver, is still in a natural state, still in a standard state? How can it be that part of nature's breaking, part of nature isn't breaking? How is he within nature and, so to speak, beyond nature at the same time? That's a better way to say the question. How can there be, so to speak, within nature and beyond nature at the same time? Let's use that as a framework. Alright, Oz Zayin, V'yesh Lomar, there is to say, and we talk about these tremendous miracles that should be in the ultimate redemption. We should have it right away. Shnei Yanyanim, there's two aspects. Focus on superstar miracles, two aspects. How could it be something that's so far beyond nature is enclosed in nature? Because then, this concealment that's higher than revelation, which we've talked about at length in the previous part of the mimer, will be drawn into revelation. That which is higher than revelation will be drawn into revelation. Let that sit for a second. And we could say a lot, but let's see what the Rebbe explains. And this, that, if you apply that principle we just said of that which is beyond revelation drawn into revelation, and take it as a general principle and map it into the concept of nature, what does that mean? Don't mean to be sounding all nerdy and sciencey, just trying to make it clear. This is a heavy-hitting oath, and I'd really like for it to come out clear. I love clear communication. I think clear is a wonderful aspect in communication, although still have to say it nice and, find the right vehicle and be kind. But clear is indispensable. It's very nice. You're communicating. You want the other person to know what you're saying. Alright, so higher than revelation into revelation. Let's take this and apply it to nature. What does it mean? So the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, some say, says that nature, because then, and this that nature won't conceal on these wonders. How is that? How come all of a sudden, usually you see the sun go up, go down, the tree waves, this and that, whatever it is. But then you're going to see all these tremendous miracles that should be right away. It's because then nature's going to have an ascent. Nature's going to have an elevation. Nature's going to go up. See what that means. And nature itself will become a vessel for miracles higher than nature. Well, that's confusing. Isn't nature a vessel for nature? I mean, that's what it is. Nature works. The sun goes up, down. The ball falls, the rock falls. Whatever you understand the statutes of nature to be, aren't these the Isn't that what it's? Doesn't seem like nature's a vessel for the miraculous and these wonderful changes and beyond space and time. I mean, how's that supposed to work? I added beyond space and time. It's a vessel for what it is. The bottle is a vessel for a drink. It's not a vessel for something that's 10 times its size. It just doesn't work. So seemingly it's going to become a vessel for something that was absolutely not designed for, not a vessel for before. I'm a little nervous about saying the words and I ate too much. So I hope this is coming through clear. Try to edit it out. But what the Rebbe is saying is nature will become a vessel for beyond nature. How does that work? And through this we could already explain. Alright, let's take a look, and maybe we'll get through the paragraph and try to do more explanation at the end, God willing, Gleanatter. We can explain the two explanations we had when it came to the end of the verse. Ba'areinu niflaos, I will show you wonders. So the verse says, like in the days of you going out of Egypt. We talked about plural days, because you're always going out of Egypt forever and ever, getting further and further from boundary and closer to ultimate redemption. We should have it right away. And the first boundary to overcome is your physical boundary, but it's hard if you overeat. And if you pick the wrong foods, and if you eat too fast, and it just takes time. Eat right, sleep right, stay in the light. So those things are important. God gave you a body and it has certain needs, and if you take care of it well, it's just much easier to be a godly vessel. But that being said, a person certainly has enough of a mind and a heart to overcome their milder physical experiences like slight overeating. Realize they're spiritual, infect the body, I don't know the right word, imbue the body with a spiritual feeling, overcome their mental limitations, their psychological limitations, their emotional limitations, till they're all the way out of Egypt and just an etzemdik essential being and free and living a godly life, being a representative of God. So we talked about Kimei, Seitz Mitzrayim, going out of your boundaries, going out of Egypt in a literal sense. Areinu Neflos, I will show you wonders. Hashem says He's going to show us wonders. We've talked generally about two classes of wonder, beyond nature and within nature. And within nature we broke into three categories, but we've been focusing mostly, in my opinion, on this one that the miracle is so invested in nature, the guy himself doesn't even see it, or the girl doesn't even see it, because we're surrounded by miracles all the time. It's just a matter of picking up the right frequency, the right level of perception. So if we're talking about miracles that are so enclosed in nature, the guy doesn't see it, I get it. Okay, he'll see it. But even so, there's more to say, and we're going to say, God willing, Blinner. But if we're talking about miracles that are beyond nature, like the sea splitting, what's this idea of seeing? I don't get it. He already saw it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about these two explanations. Pirush Admor Emsai, the explanation of the Mittler Rebbe, the second Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe's son. Shigam and Yiflo Shemayla Matevi Ira Azbi Gili, that also the natures that are beyond nature will be seen in a revealed sense. What do you mean? Revealed sense. The sea split, the guy saw it, it was revealed. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis? I'll make it on my own. I was going to say Rabbi Gordon, he should be back with us in Group Ash. He said, Lucy, explain it to him. I miss Rabbi Gordon. He should be back with us in the Ultimate Redemption right away. Azbi Gili, Velo Kamo Akshav Shiniv Osamai Batevi Yodim Rak Mitziyoisam. So now the Rebbe is going to explain. Now, when a person sees the sea split, he just sees, I'm going to say the effect. He sees the entity. He sees what? And you say the exact right words. He just sees that the sea split. He doesn't know what happened. He sees the effect of some miraculous act, and the effect of this act was the sea splitting. But he doesn't know A to Z about what just went down. He just knows he saw the sea split. Here's the Samak Tzedek, Shigam and Yisim Shnushim Tevin, those Gedos and Shekhem Kenslavado. And the Samak Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. There's a lot to say about this. I don't know if now's the time or the place. Alright, we'll say a little bit. Yeah, when it comes to Chassidus, in my opinion, I think according to the opinion of many, it's the most powerful force, medicine, godly entity we have on the planet. Something a person can put into themselves in a way that they could wrap their head around it to some degree that actually changes who they are. Changes their thought, speech, and action, hopefully even their heart and mind, although that's superstar stuff, but can certainly change the daily functioning. It's not like modern modalities that just give you a band-aid and you're still really the same person, but you learn coping techniques. A person can actually physically change, although I'm not familiar with all the modern modalities. Maybe they have a way of breaking a person or they could break habits or whatever. But this actually helps a person become who they really are, bring out their essential being. And then the changes happen in a way of automatic. You know, once you get in touch with your true self, then you just be that self. You don't have to break this and reinvent that and jump from here to there, and you're not limited to thinking, you know, that you're some composite of your experiences up to this point, that you're limited by your fears. It, you know, it kind of pushes that inner well and drives out those delicate, beautiful, eternal waters more towards the surface so you can live in such a place. Anyway, by far the greatest and best thing on the planet. There's no comparison, and what it can do to a person is irreplaceable. You can't find this anywhere else. Anyway, so you can imagine, now I'm going to explain this. Alright, so when certain superstar, really, really good things want to come into the world, there are opposing angels upstairs that litigate against. And maybe we could say, like a earthly based in an earthly court, the people argue different sides, but you know, no one's good just because they both want to understand the truth. Talking about the judges or the great sages who are deliberating the case, determining, deciding the case. Paskin, I think deliberating is the right word. And they argue this and they argue that, and majority rules, and they could, for the most part, there's a lot to say about that. That I'm not going to get into all the laws of how we determine cases. I happen to be studying Dionis now, but happily on heart, that's something else. But suffice it to say, the Torah says, Acharon Lahatos, after the majority we will tilt. And you could read Lahatos how you want. Anyway, that we follow the majority. There's a lot to say about that verse. I'm going to say we follow the majority. I'm going to get off that point. Alright. So they could be arguing opposite one to the other. Goes like the majority. So imagine I'm suggesting the same model upstairs with good angels and not so good angels. So, like we see when superstar souls wanted to come in the world, like souls that, if you look at Mashiach's lineage, it's a very interesting lineage he has. Look at Lot and his daughters. Look at Tamar and Yehuda. So just as an example, sometimes when a superstar soul wants to come into the world, the litigating angels say, no way, no, it can't be. The world, I don't know what they say. The world's not ready yet. It'll be too much goodness. The people don't deserve God, whatever it is. But then if the other side says, look, how about if we let this tremendously godly force come into the world, but in this kind of messed up, grubby way, at least according to what we understand, like a father with his daughter or harlotry or whatever it is, or even by ruse there was a little something, but I don't know. Anyway, these type of things, she sort of, I'll let you learn about ruse too. Anyway, so these sort of things, then maybe they'll concede, if you let it come in this kind of really, lets you be strong, let's say disgusting way, then that's okay. So you can imagine when the force of Chassidus wanted to come into the world, how much opposition there was. And you see the Alter Rebbe was imprisoned and tortured over revealing Chassidus possibly before the time. And you see the tremendous decision he made to side with the Tsar rather than with Napoleon, because if the Yidden had too much expanse and physicality, he had determined that it wouldn't be good for them. That's a hard decision for a father to make. You want to give your kid everything, but if you see that, you also don't want to give your kid a pack of cash and a bottle of beer, a bottle of whiskey and a pouch of food and drop him outside the brothel either. That's not going to work out too good. I mean, and the hope that he's going to eat, drink, and spend responsibly and get out, it's foolish. So, oftentimes, since we have a physical aspect, which is actually spiritual, the physical aspect is fully satiated, it can be harder to get in touch with the spiritual, and God forbid a person could forget about God, think they're the boss, think they're independent, don't need anything, and keep going, even though they're fully dependent on God. So had Napoleon won the war, the Alter Rebbe projected that the Yidden would have had so much expansion and physicality that it wouldn't have been good for them and they would have wandered from their father in heaven, God forbid. And he sided with the Tsar, who didn't have favorable policies towards the Jews. When a person's, God forbid, in a pinch spot, he realizes a lot more his dependence on the Almighty. And to have that awareness is, what is it worth to you to know that every breath you take is dependent on God, that you have absolute dependence on God, and that He's with you, He's got your back, He's with you every second. To really, what's it worth to you to know you're dependent on Him and to develop that relationship? Anyway, that being said, there was a lot of prosecution against Chassidus coming into the world. And they were actually upstairs had decided that the Alter Rebbe was doing too much, and they were going to, God forbid, take him upstairs. They can't miss a chance to say, the Rebbe, some say Melech Mashiach, says we could have eternal life in these bodies, the world is that refined, we just have to receive the face of Mashiach, which means learn Mishnayos and say it in the streets, as well as learn about Gul and Mashiach, which we're doing, and spread it and put it on the web, and please pass on all what you learned, and please start your own website, and let's flood the web where no matter what a person types into that Google search bar, all they find is Torah, Chassidus, and good things. And all the good things that Chabad is doing, and whatever, all the good things people are doing all over the world. They should see only good. What's the problem with seeing good? I mean, or maybe I should say, why does not good sell? Think about all the excuses a person gets for himself if he sees people behaving that well. Well, then he can behave in a certain way, and at least he's better than them, and no one can tell him what to do, and he cannot. He doesn't have to esteem himself. He can hang in his room. He can feel good about his garbage. It's okay to esteem yourself. It's okay to be good. It's okay to do well. You're going to fall sometimes. It's only to help you go higher and to reinforce what you already know. There's knowing and there's knowing and there's knowing. As much as I know not to overeat, still overeat. So, it's got to be enforced. It's got to go deeper. It's going to help me eat even better in the future and be a better Jew in the future and hopefully God help even more. These type of things. So I lost my tangent there. So much for bringing them all over the place. So anyway, they had decided, the Alter Rebbe, eternal life, yeah. So please pass on a little what you learned, and let's flood the web with good stuff. And people will see good stuff, and they'll be inspired to do good stuff, and they'll esteem themselves, and we'll flood the world with good, and we'll have the redemption. Should be right away. So they were going to, God forbid, take the Alter Rebbe upstairs, and somehow his daughter caught wind of it. And it's important to say that I don't know how broadly this is expanded, but there's a teaching that the daughters have the emotional makeup of the father, and the sons have the emotional makeup of the mother. And I'm not sure, I think all the kids have the brain of the father, to some degree. Attributes of the father, but the emotions are what make the person a little more. And the body comes from the mom, the dad put in the seed and she ate all the food, and that's why the kid is whatever the mom is, because the mom made the kid. The kid is, the soul existed before the body. The body is the novelty of our world. Mom made the body. The kid's whatever mom is. Shows an amazing power of a womb. A Jewish womb can transform even a non-Jewish Havdil seed into a Jew. Not that that should ever happen, God forbid. And vice versa, even worse, Chas v'shalom, that a non-Jewish womb can, God forbid, transform a Jewish seed to be not Jewish. God forbid those things should happen. Jews should marry Jews. We should have Shleimus Am, they should be halakhic Jews. People should be clear what is a Jew. What does it mean? Halakhic conversion. God's not playing around. He has in mind what's a Jew and when the soul comes down and not. What's the one difference between a Jew and a non-Jew? It's just one soul, but it's a godly soul. It's a doozy, and it comes with a lot of responsibility. No one's saying better or worse, but you have to live up to your responsibility. And you can esteem yourself and do it. So a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, but you have to know what's a Jew, and you want to marry someone who has that godly soul, who will help build the home that you want to build, and will go forward. And often once kids show up, then people are drawn towards their paths, and when people who seem happy on the outside in the marriage, you never know what's going on behind closed doors. A true good marriage is, for a Jew, is with another Jew. Even if there is, things to, God forbid, work through. Hopefully it's just be happy and good, and everyone's getting along and on the same page and happy all the time. But even when there's things to work for, it's good. You're working towards a common goal, a common ground with deeply rooted eternal beliefs. Anyway, so his daughter caught wind of, God forbid, what was going to happen to him. And she, through a long story, you can learn this in the book about the Alter Rebbe. I think it's just titled by his name, Shneur Zalman of Liadi. It's got a really funky cover. It's got a lot of yellow in it. Anyway, it's a fun book. You would enjoy reading it. And somehow, through a lot of finagling and I don't want to say coercing, but coercing, she got it based in together. And after, what she asked was extreme. I don't want to say this was a simple thing or happened quickly. It took a lot. She convinced an earthly based in to judge that whatever sentence was on her father should be passed to her. And at this time, she had a young son, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, which we're going to, God willing, talk about soon. That's how this whole story started. And she convinced them. And the sentence was passed on to her. She was a young woman of perfect health. And within a very short time, I think a week, it was coming up to the high holidays, and I think just before, she died. She was nifter. And the Alter Rebbe was healed and continued to spread Chassidus. And part of the argument, you've seen the Rebbetzin encouraging the Rebbe to take the Nesias. The argument seems to be, I don't know, these are my words totally. I don't know if this makes any sense at all, but it just seems to be when the ladies say to the men, and doesn't know if it has to be ladies to men, or men to ladies, or men to men, or ladies to ladies, but just the dynamics I'm thinking of, or ladies to men saying, but if we don't, then what will be with Father's work? What will be with Chassidus? So when they heard that, they as if I remember the story right, please check it out, that, everyone, that the based in understood the value of the Alter Rebbe's work, and there was certainly no one like him who could perpetuate and purport and propagate. I'm saying words, I'm not sure if I'm saying what they mean, but I think I'm saying the right words. The works of Chassidus out into the world, that it should go and it should spread and be healthy and good and help a lot of people. And the Rebbetzin said this to the Rebbe too, what will be with Chassidus and Father's work and Chassidim. And this seemed to speak to him, to the Beis Din, that they agreed that we needed the Alter Rebbe around to keep Chassidus thriving and running and growing. And then it wasn't thriving. This is the birth of Chabad Chassidus. We needed to get it out of the womb, up and stable and healthy, and out into the world where it could run into its thing. And now, 6 generations later, the Rebbetzin was saying to the Rebbe, look what's been built over all this time in Father's work. If you don't take the leadership, what will be? This idea of the importance of Chassidus and continuing it has caused some amazing events in our history. Anyway, so they agreed. She died. She should be back with us in Guf Gashmi. The Alter Rebbe got well. And she raised her son, he raised her son on his lap. The Semek Tzedek, he grew up around the Alter Rebbe. And there's a lot of great stories to tell about that, but those I'm not going to tell because I told a lot of stories already today. And since the daughter has the emotional makeup of the father, the daughter is very similar to the Alter Rebbe. She had a son whose emotional makeup is very similar to hers, which is similar to the Alter Rebbe. So this said there's to be a tremendous connection between the Semek Tzedek and the Alter Rebbe. So that's how, has something, just to say something about, because it didn't go father to son in this case. It went father to son to nephew. So, just something interesting. And we just had it in Rashi for that, by the high priest in Chumash, that if his son is capable, and I think we see by a king also, whether Nasi and a king are the same, there's a lot to say. But certainly there's a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of overlap there. I think a Nasi is like a king. Although there's halachas of a king, being anointed, Sanhedrin, this and that, a lot to say about that. Anyway, so the Semek Tzedek has a different explanation, back to the Maimer, God willing, Gleanatter, about the end of our verse, that Hashem will show us wonders. He says it goes on nature busters. Well, how's that supposed to, oh no, I'm sorry, he says it goes on the ones that are enclosed within nature, that are so enclosed, the guy doesn't even know what happened, and stem from this tremendous level of Levado, where all that exists is Hashem and His name. And we're talking pre-Simpson Mauritian stuff, where everything is just on a God level. And Levado means himself, and in our context of who's the only one who knows the miracle happened is Hashem, but we're talking about a very, 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 very high level of godliness, well beyond space and time, no limits of any kind, even limits are unlimited, just everything on a God level, perfect shlemus, perfect completion. So he says, he says, in the future, Damshim Shabbat right away, we'll see those things. It won't, the guy now, he doesn't even know what's happening. The ultimate redemption of Shabbat right away, we'll see it, like we talked about earlier. And the Rebbe says the content of both explanations, which this is what was exciting for me, is to see, I don't even want to say a disagreement, but I haven't seen in a mimer before two, I don't know the right strength of language to use, but two clearly different opinions about a verse from Rebbeim and what it goes on. I mean, and both could be true. It's not an argument. There's no reason both could be true, but just to see, like when God willing, learn these, and Blian Har learn the tremendous works like Samach Vav and Ayin Beis, and certainly Samach Vav, I haven't learned that much of Ayin Beis. What struck me was, you see, the Rebbeim looking back at the giants in history and resolving a lot of arguments, I don't want to say arguments, a lot of philosophical arguments that they had. There wasn't, I don't even necessarily want to say debate, but there was different ways of looking at Hashem and how He made the world and exactly what. Fine, Hashem is God, He made everything, He's the Jewish God, and all that, but exactly how and what and who and why and what, these things, people had different opinions, and the Rebbeim looked at everything that had been said in the past and resolved quite a bit. Point, I think, you can still make novelties in Torah and make it great, but I don't think there's a lot of those giant overarching questions to ask. I don't think there's any, actually. I think they've worked it all out, to be honest. I don't think you could find a meaningful question that hasn't been asked and answered. Although, with the details that we have, the points we had, you could expand them infinitely more and make more questions, but it's not going to touch the fundament, if that's a word. I'm making up a lot of words today, I think. Or at least using a lot of interesting words. Anyway, I think more or less the whole essential nature has been mapped out to like the point of a molecule where there's just no stone left unturned. But it's a question of, investing the time to learn all the works. And if you don't have your answer now, to certainly know your brain isn't the end all be all of creation. Someone else likely has it. If they don't have it, they might know who has it. And if they don't know who has it, it's somewhere. You have to have the faith that somewhere in Chassidus that you're going to find your answer in Torah, wherever it is. But to think, because you don't know, you can't figure it out and make big conclusions from this, that's just foolish. You're not that smart. But anyway, you might be very smart, but still you're not smarter than God, and you're certainly not smarter than the Rebbeim, and great sages in history that were closer to Matan Torah who could see things. When the light's on, you don't really need that much smarts. If the light's on in my room, anybody can find the stuff in my room. My advantage of knowledge of the room is when it's dark. Anyway, so, don't let your brain be the end-all, be-all. It ain't even... You're lucky if it's the end-all. Anyway, so just know whatever answers you're looking for are out there, and don't get perplexed. And, it's not the greatest to be in I'm wondering space, but if you know the answer's there and you have a little patience, you can get there. Patience is tough. No one likes operating in an I don't know space, but if you know the answer's there, then at least you can save yourself from making foolhardy conclusions. And with patience and time, God will certainly help you get there. And maybe it'll be sooner rather than later, you'll find. Anyway, this is the first time I've seen the Rebbeim offering different opinions on a verse, so that was very exciting for me. And the Rebbe, some say Malach Mashiach, is saying that the content of both these explanations is that in the future redemption, that nature will be a vessel for that's higher than nature. How does that work? And this is why nature won't conceal on the miracles that are enclosed in it. Ella Shapir Semik Tzedek. Oh, it seemed different to me. I thought the Semik Tzedek said different than the Mittler Rebbe. How are you going to tell me they're really the same? In an arena of loss, Teva lost their Anisim, Mashakim the Teva, and Nisim Shingam Mazeh Shorin Sof, who Mata Mata, and Agili Dorain Sof. Teva Kamoshu Akshav, Master Gamo Nisim Eile. Just that the Semik Tzedek says it happens to show on the miracles that are totally enclosed in nature from this level of Levado, that nature won't conceal on them anymore. And we've talked earlier that these miracles are drawn from a source state of Hashem's infinite light, that the way it comes all the way down without end, which is a revelation of Hashem's infinite light, all the way down here. And, as low as it can go and never stopping. That the nature the way it is now, it kind of hides on these type of miracles. Because the source of these miracles that are enclosed in nature, it's in the revelation of Hashem's infinite light. The Beklaus who Shem Havaya Shemayim Teva, which is generally speaking about Shem Havaya, which is higher than nature. Shem Havaya generally shows on Hashem the way He is beyond space and time. And any word in Hebrew that kind of looks like Shem Havaya is likely a form of the verb to be, because this set of letters and that verb are very closely related, and we often say about this name of Hashem that He was, He is, and He will be. He's just completely beyond space and time, and all that at once. And it is the source for all of creation around us, but if it were to come, creation came straight from Shem Havaya, there'd be no limits, no concealment, no sense of time and multiplicity, multiplicity and separate things and limits. So it had to come through a veil of Shem Elohim, so we could have the world the way we perceive it. But the force that Elohim is concealing on is Shem Havaya. Maybe you could say Chesed and Gevurah. Just throwing that out there now. Let's not lose sight of its Netzach Sheva Gevurah today. So let's run. Anyway, I'm a little distracted, but only a few lines left. Shorsha Teva Shim, but nature itself. So the miracles we're saying come from a revelation of the infinite light of God that's beyond nature, which generally shows on Shem Havaya. And Shorsha Teva B'Shem Elokim, and the source of nature comes from Shem Elokim, which happens to have the same gematria as HaTeva. In Hebrew, the characters for the letters are also the characters for the numbers, and if you have a tradition, a Kabbalah, you don't just make these things up because you're a math whiz. So you could take the letters of the word and add up those letters / numbers and get a total. And sometimes if another word that looks completely different has the same total, there's a relationship. So Elohim adds up to 86, HaTeva adds up to 86, so you see a deep connection between these two words. And we see the Rebbe saying clearly here that Elohim is the source for the source of nature. Elokim Gematria Teva, and then he brings the Gematria like I just did a second ago. Sometimes you just have to keep reading. Got my little self off track there with all that. Don't let your brain be the top stuff. It's good to have a brain and use it, but just know that there's a lot smarter than you out there, and don't worry about not having the answers and keep plugging. But just know there is an infinite knowledge, and the answers are there, and go forward confidently and happily. And all the answers are there. Okay, so Elohim hides Avaya like nature hides on miracles. Shemaylim Master al Shem Avaya. Velasalavi Shem Elohim Kli Gili Avaya. And in the future redemption, the same way we're saying nature will be a vessel for beyond nature, Elohim will be a vessel for the revelation of Avaya. Pirish Admorim Soy, when it comes to the Mittler Rebbe. In an arena of flaws, Susheteva Nimshak Mashem Elohim Yikli, Flush al Mailam Teva, Nimshak Mazesh Orain Sofula Mailam Maila. Halam Shemaylam Megilli, the Mailam Avaya. And according to the Mittler Rebbe, who says that we're talking about miracles that are nature busters, this is sourced from. Let me be careful. Let me make sure I say what it says here. This idea of Hashem showing us wonders is that nature that's drawn from Shem Elohim will also be a vessel for wonders, but wonders that are higher than nature, but not the ones that come from the infinite light of God the way it comes all the way down, but the one that comes from the infinite light of God the way it goes all the way up. Shem goes uppity, uppity, up. He goes down, down, down. He goes, the infinite light of God is everywhere. It's just a matter of how perceived it is. And it's easier as a human being to think of it as way up and beyond, and to think of it right here with you. It's a little more exciting and interesting to try to wrap your head around, because a person could, God forbid, see a natural world. He has to know nature's beyond nature, and as his perception changes, the world around him changes, but mostly drives the world he sees is how he perceives it. It's kind of redundant. Alright, so it comes from this level of infinite light of God that's super high. Helam Shemaylam Megilli, concealment that's much, much higher than revelation, even higher than Shem Avaya. So, from the some ascetics perspective, we were saying that Elohim hides on Havaya, hides on things that are beyond nature, and that Elohim will become, as I understood it, maybe I'm not saying right, that Elohim will become a vessel for beyond nature. And we're also saying that, in both cases, we're saying that nature will become a vessel for beyond nature. But which aspect of the infinite light of God will be revealed? Will Elohim become a revelation of Avaya? Or will nature become a revelation for what's even higher than Avaya, the Orient Sof that's much, much higher? And I just think it's important to say, as you grow and mature and develop a more godly outlook, the world around you looks different. I don't know, let's say you studied botany your whole life. I don't know if that's the right science. I think that has to do with plant life and trees. The way you look at a plant and a tree, it changes. The plant didn't physically change, and you're not negating the plant. But at first you just saw this plant, this green thing, and had a certain size and shape, because that's all you knew. But as you start to learn all the inner workings of the plant, when you see the plant now, you're like, wow! And you see a whole different thing here, even though it still has the same size and shape, and you're still seeing that size and shape. But what's going on inside and how it works, it's a totally different perception. So as your knowledge changes, your worldview changes, and the world around you actually changes. You are walking around in a different world. Your world is the perception of your world. The world isn't the physical limits you see. It's what you put into it, your mind and your heart and your intellect. So as you get a much more godly headspace and learn to look at everything around you with a godly view, godly eyes and godly wisdom, you will start to walk around in a godly world, and more and more and more. There's no limit to that. So a person could see a tree as a big chunk of wood, or he could see it as the Shem Havaya enlivening it every time, or any space in between, a little bit of the Shem Havaya, a little bit of secular wisdom, Lahavdil, whatever it is, up and up the chain until he learns to see the tree as mamish, just an expression of God's infinite oneness. So as we learn more, it will change our worldview, and you can see already how nature is becoming a vessel for beyond nature just through learning that one paragraph. The tree, or if you could apply what you learned in that paragraph and the little bit of change that God willing happened inside you, the tree looks a little different. You already see nature becoming a vessel for what's beyond nature. All right, I want to wish everybody a great day, and Mashiach now.